Welcome to Energy Stew. This is Peter Roth, your host. And I'd like to ask you, when was the last time you knew that you truly loved yourself? Maybe it was just a few seconds ago or an hour ago. Let's hope it was very recent. But in order to understand the journey of self-love and of self-discovery and of fullness in life, are the authors of an incredible book to journey with, and it's called The Orchid, The Secret Code of Modern Goddesses. Interesting. I think it pertains to gods also. But to help us understand this journey of finding oneself in wholeness are the two authors of The Orchid, Angel Orengo and Rocio Aquino. I don't know if I pronounced your names right, but welcome.
Was perfect, Peter. Thank you so much, Rocio Aquino.
An angel. Thank you, Angel. Thank you for having us here in your space.
Sure. No, I'm so glad to talk with you because your book is very profound. Because it takes people on a journey of self-discovery through struggle, which everybody has, and finds opportunities. So let's talk a little bit first about why you wrote this and what is going on with you guys that you are drawn to have fulfilled this need to help others.
Thank you so much. Beautiful question. Is my mom died when she was 48 and I was 20, and really was very difficult to see somebody who didn't have any tools at all of self-love and how to overcome the loss of a marriage and property with an earthquake, and really trauma because she was an immigrant for Spain to went to Mexico. So after searching for 30 years, I really come because I was born in a place where everything was from the eyes of victimhood. And when you are a victim, you really see life from those perspectives. And it's very difficult to remove that. So after 30 years of searching, I begin to question people, how do you forgive? And in general, no one can tell you how you forgive. What are the steps that you need to follow? So finally, when I find out and experience myself forgiveness and really the release in my body, all the sentiments and feelings that I was carrying, I went to Angel and say, we need to share this with the world. And of course, I want to do a TV show. And he say,
Well, it wasn't a crazy idea. We come from the world of entertainment, and so let's do a TV show was not that, not crazy. But what came to me at that moment, and mind you, for a little bit of context, we had been studying spiritual psychology for a couple of years. We had been reading an incredible amount of books, hundreds of books, all about human expansion, growth, energy. And we were starting to understand more than anything ourselves. And we would come out of readings or classes and retreats, and we would look at each other, and it was great because we had each other to speak to. And so we would say, are you feeling the way I'm feeling? And she would say, yes. And we said, what is this? And that's when she said, well, we need to share it somehow. And then what came was, let's do a story. Let's tell this not through the eyes and stories of Angel and Rocio, but rather through the stories of other people, fictitious, because humans have been sitting around the fire and listening to stories for millennia, right? And so it just made sense that that was the approach we were going to take, and that's what got us started on the book.
Right. It's wonderful that you want to share this, but you bring more than one element to this book. It's so many elements of growth in people because because the book is a story, a woven story. It's a novel, but it's really based on what could be easily real people um, finding their way through challenges and how they are able to resolve them.
Yeah.
And so it's a wonderful opportunity for everybody because everybody has plenty of opportunities to grow.
We all do.
Yeah.
Yes, to release what I wanna say is really doesn't matter what happened 5 seconds ago. It's how you can be in the present moment, creating the next moment for a place of abundance, freedom, creativity, peace, and a lot of love. When you are there, really is very is is freedom, is possibilities, is hope. So after being really, Peter, I became my best friend at 50. And it's now that I see my two daughters are 19 and 17, really being living with all these tools, with all this understanding that they can change things and they have a say in what their experience are, is really powerful for them. So, and really, we are not talking about age, we are talking about the spirit of every person and really how you can heal the spirit and is possible. So it's beautiful.
And I'm so glad you have children who are awake and can process this. That's wonderful. Good for you. And so it's a journey. But when you started talking about this and the idea that you lived in victimhood for so long, I think that's a major problem on this planet right now because everybody is finding that they're victims of government, of economy, of the weather, of each other. And it goes on and on how people live that way. And it's sad because, um, I mean, it's obvious that we're not in charge. But does that mean we have to live as victims? It's a whole concept that that, that loses hope. Because I think even now, however we are struggling in the world, we need to hold hope. And hope is found through, I think, through self-love. And so I think the greatest, you know, direction that you're leading people in is to their hearts. And so,
Peter, the first lesson in the book is about awareness. And I think that's what you're saying is one of the important things we want people to know is try to step out of yourself and look at yourself and see how you are looking at the world. If you're able to do that, it might give you answers and perspective. Ask yourself, why am I in victimhood? What is it about my experiences? And if you're able to at least ask the question, then all of a sudden you're at least say, well, those beliefs that I hold, do I like them? And if I like them, then by all means continue them. And if you don't, then ask yourself, do I want to change them?
that's interesting.
And if you do, and the answer is yes, I do, then that's, I don't know what percentage to apply to that, but let's say it's half the job. All of a sudden, if you say, there's something about me I don't quite like, and I would like to change it, somehow the universe comes together and say, let me give you some options for you to choose from.
No,
And so that's where it happens.
I was just thinking of writing a long list of everything we can imagine being a victim of, and then looking at that list and laughing at it. What a joke.
Is that joke?
Totally.
We need to have more understanding that we have really the power to change our perspective from victimhood to hope and to solve and what else we can do. What if I see this from another perspective?
And that is one of the reasons why when we wrote the book, we wrote it as a novel of 5 women, so that it's not really about you. You're really just accompanying them along their journey. You're seeing the entirety of that journey across 7 days. You're understanding what they're thinking, how they're interacting, what's happening to them. And then the other element that we added to the novel is we spend only about 10% of the novel, or a very small percentage, dedicated to what actually happened to them in the past. Following the wisdom of that saying that says life is 10% what happens and 90% how you react. The novel really spends the majority of the story focusing on how the women, utilizing tools, utilizing processes, a lot of it in circles, as we were speaking before, in community, in sharings, how they learned how to let go of those things that were holding them down, and in the process get a little bit of a view of what starts to look like self-love. And indeed, that's the trajectory. And it's a beautiful story in which you follow them along. But by the end of the story, you become one of them. And it doesn't matter that you're a man or a woman reading the book, the experience is the same.
And
Right.
the most important part is that you gain inspiration for
Right.
what they are having. So it's important to really go inside and see, because when you have good ideas, you can follow.
Right. And I think good ideas aren't exclusive to women. Because even though the book says the secret code of modern goddesses, I, I look at that and I go, well, I'm glad, because women really, so many women are hurting and need support, need each other. And actually, the future, I think, for women is community more than for men. Men are the hunters, women are the gatherers, so they're the socializers. And women, I think, innately need each other more than men do. Um, and it's sad, but I know I'm a guy who um, isn't seeking. And there's some wonderful men's groups out there, but it just somehow I don't feel geared to that. But I love it that women find each other and support each other.
One of the reasons why well, we make sense of it now, but really how it happened is we were in our kitchen having coffee one morning after the project had begun, and Rocio wakes up and says, I had a dream last night, and the project needs to be about women. And it took me a second. I just started looking through my history and my life, and I said, of course it does. It makes perfect sense. And that was it. That's when we decided that it would be all about women. And the best way in which I found to describe it is like in the human being, we have 2 legs, right? 2 columns in which we stand, and everything, it's held by those 2 gigantic pieces of muscle and bone and that hold us together. And for too long, we've been relying on one leg and not the other. And that's why we wanted to honor women. It's also about strengthening the feminine so that we as the organism of consciousness that we all are, can stand on our 2 firm columns and be stronger in that balance.
I'm glad you said that, because we have always, not always, but for thousands of years, lived in a male dominant society. And women are finding their footing, but it still doesn't come easy. And so women really need the most support to find their strong leg, or the strong of the two of us. As a couple, for instance, the two of you, and I actually think women have always been the stronger gender anyway. And
I come from a corporate background and career. I can, the way I describe this is imagine being in a group of 10 people at work, 5 women and 5 men, and all of a sudden you ask the women to be lesser than, to not give themselves, to not provide their ideas to that group and that organization. And it's just silly. You wouldn't allow that to happen in a work environment. Why do we allow it to happen in the world or in our livelihoods? And so that's the importance of strengthening. I can't wait to see the world that we live in when that power is restored, if you will, and therefore the balance.
I think the struggle is a level of lower consciousness that is changing.
Yes,
And your book is part of the change.
indeed.
Because it's helping people find strength. And women, because women will be drawn to this more than men because it's about modern goddesses. And a lot of men will say, oh, I guess that doesn't mean me. But it should really, because it's not about gender.
Yeah.
But you know what is the beautiful part, Peter? When you really go like a man and read a book to understand how women think, you're gonna be so lucky because really you're gonna go to the profound soul of how women think and to understand them and how to talk. So what we are doing is creating bridges between the feminine and the masculine, and to understand that we being together a condition to be thinking that we are different and we don't have many similarities, when on the contrary, we have so much similarities, and it's important to begin to have these conversations.
One thing that my wife brags about when she talks about me to other people is that I have a strong feminine nature. And I don't mind,
Beautiful.
I have, I've brought up two strong boys in my life, my sons. And so I don't doubt that I'm this um, macho guy who doesn't have a big ego, and but I have to tell you, in my early days, I was a third-degree black belt in karate, so I and I always uh, stood up for myself in the streets when I was attacked by muggers, etc. So I don't mind having a feminine nature if I feel like I have my own personal power.
Yeah.
How beautiful.
When I look at our book and I look at what it's done for me, and I think ultimately I was already like that, but it is about the feminine and the masculine balance within me. In fact, I look at the commandment in the Bible that says, honor thy father and thy mother. I think it really is telling us find a balance of the divine masculine and the divine feminine in you so that you can live the best version of yourself. Now, that's for me. We just had a conversation with a gentleman who read the book. He's in his early 60s. And he was saying that for the first time, he saw an old friend, a female friend from childhood. And he had one of the most profound conversations he's ever had with her after reading the book, because he went with a different conscience into that conversation, a different intention. And so there's a lot of healing both for men and women in the book and in the story.
I'd like to ask you, how would you define the feminine nature in a man? How does it appear?
For me, I can only tell you is high level of sensitivity, empathy
Right,
to in situations, right? It's putting I am able to put myself into other people's shoes quite easily.
right.
And I believe
Compassion.
there's a lot of compassion as well, for sure. If I go back to my early years, Peter, and when I say early, I mean childhood. I was, for example, sexually abused around the age of 9 or 10. I don't know exactly the age, but around that time. And I never went to a therapist. And somehow by the age of 30, it was no longer, I didn't any longer feel it in my body. I've done work since then also to heal more and more. But I believe it was crying. I used to cry a lot. And there's not something that I would tell anybody because it was frowned upon that for men to cry, right? It's a sign of weakness.
Mhm.
Today, I look back at that characteristic in my life and I see it as a superpower, something that allowed me to drain the energy in my body over time. And so I think there's different elements and it probably shows itself differently to different men, but that's how it showed in my life.
But I have to laugh because I think all that you're describing just shows what we think men don't have,
Right.
which is a lot. And so to bring out more of the feminine nature is really to be much more human.
To be more balanced and be allow yourself to not be guided or restricted by a gender box, but rather by the essence of who your spirit is. That's right.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's so really this book is it's so important to go through the journeys and to come to the other side. But and let's talk about the particular gifts that it offers of like forgiveness, etc. That you show in the book. I think there are five particular strengths that you want people to work with, right?
Yes.
You go.
Yes, we want awareness to understand limiting beliefs, to understand the way they think, and to begin to have a growth mindset. Then we move to gratitude and how gratitude in awareness we explain how is the energy and how you move through different stages that can take you from surviving to what is curiosity, gratitude, forgiveness, acceptance, and then intention, and how you can go to joy and love. And
Mhm.
really is love to yourself. And when we explain that, we move it to now you're going to experience how you can achieve gratitude. Then, how we explain how forgiveness is important in your life. After, where is acceptance? And yes, everything happens, but now is what we're gonna do with that information. We show how is important journaling, different techniques for really go inside and experience your own humanity. And after that, when the characters they feel better about themselves, they go to intention to create from a place from, okay, now that I feel better, what I want to create for the future. And from that moment is like a, the power of, okay, I used to be here, but now I can move myself to go to another direction.
Right. And so these stories are stories of self-empowerment that people can identify with and find it within themselves.
Yes.
Every character that we speak of is has a little bit of our experience. So, for example, there were moments in my professional career, my corporate career, in which I was extremely successful, but I didn't enjoy it. So one of our characters experiences that often, and that's how she begins and her story. Another one is a divorced woman, and we both come from divorced mothers. And we saw that struggle and how that shaped their experience and their reality. Another woman is gay and experiencing what it is not
To have a secret.
to have a secret and not like herself because of what other people might just say about it. And there is another woman who's simply angry with the world, and she's just had to struggle for everything she's done, and to the point where she's almost dishonest and unethical about the way she goes about it because she always feels like she's acting from a point of survival.
Mm.
And the last one is a woman who, at an early age, became a model and then was sexually abused. And both of us, I spoke of mine, but Rocio
Me too.
has spoken openly about hers. So it's a little bit of us inside each of them, and but really it's a little bit of everybody we know because everyone is, as you mentioned before, going through struggles that are quite similar. We tend to repeat the same stories, us humans, and they're lived differently, but essentially the same. And so we see them, we find them. They go to this retreat center. It's a fictional retreat center called the Orchid. And there they begin to learn these lessons we spoke about. And little by little, it's they're shedding. They're just shedding, layers and layers of conditioning until they find the light within. That's always been there.
And it
And
also brings them to community, and,
Yes.
and that's
super,
wonderful.
super important because I grew up, Peter, believing that I never need to trust any women. And at one point where I was looking is the conditioning of not trusting women, probably from the Inquisition. And it's like how we can change that to really begin to understand that we are not against each other and we have more possibilities of doing things together. And because no one is the same that like me, I gonna celebrate wherever is the difference between us.
Right. It's wonderful. So we're nearing the end of the show, and I'd like you to tell the audience how they can follow up.
Fantastic. Well, you can read more about the book at www.theorchidbook.com. The book is available in electronic, physical, and audio format wherever books are sold in both English and Spanish, if anyone here is listening and wants to. But ultimately, go online, find the Orchid book. You can find our podcast stories, but more importantly, the testimonies of people who've read the book and what they're saying as to how it is impacting their lives.
I love that, and that's what it's all about. And so I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to know you and your book and to benefit from it in ways that help me and help our audience. And I'm so glad that I was able to bring you on Energy Stew.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure, really, Peter, to be here with you and all your beautiful audience. And I hope, let us know what you think about the book and how we can bring more stories of empowerment and hope and togetherness to really help to bring more understanding.
Peter,
Well,
we always like to read the dedication of the book. It's very short. May I?
okay, sure.
It says, to all who journey through these pages, may you be inspired to rewrite your own narrative and live a life of love, free of limitations, and enriched by the knowledge that you are powerful beyond belief.
I love that. All right, yeah, let's go for it. And I think you guys are on a roll. I think you're doing great, and I'm so happy that you are on the path you're on. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Thank you for the space and thank you for your listeners and audience.
Sure. And this is Peter Roth, your host of Energy Stew at prn.live. I can be reached at Peter at Heart River, HEART river.org. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks so much for listening.